Hi, guys. Welcome to another episode of From Tip to Tail, a podcast dedicated to highlighting animal rescues around the world. My name is Sydney.
And I'm Bridget. Today's episode is sponsored by Cuddly, a fundraising and wishlist platform helping nearly 2,000 animal rescues around the world.
And today we're going to be talking to Erika from the One Dane at a Time organization, whose mission is to take in Great Danes that are in need and to place them into forever homes. They also work to educate the public on the specific needs of this amazing breed and help raise awareness on spay and neuter programs and responsible ownership. Let's get started.
Oh, this puppy, this mega esophagus puppy. Have you guys seen her?
I haven't seen her yet.
Oh my gosh. I was actually gonna bug Sam, and I was like, Sam, maybe we do a campaign for this puppy. Anyway, she's really cute. She's 4 pounds. She's a Great Dane.
Oh my God, 4 pounds. How old is she? Must be tiny.
She's 4.5 weeks.
Oh wow. Wait, isn't that?
It's too small.
I was gonna say that's too small. Yeah.
It's way too small.
Okay, yeah. I was going. I was like, we were just talking about how like puppies are like the Great Dane puppies are huge.
Yeah, they are. But because she's got this mega esophagus, like her mom, like was trying to attack her at like a couple weeks old, and so basically it force weaned her, right?
Yeah.
And then somebody had to take her on and hand feed her, and it was all coming up her nose, so she wasn't getting any nutrition for like almost 2 weeks. And then they reached out. Baby. I know. So then they reached out and they're like, I really feel like I'm not doing what I should do, and I feel like she's gonna die. So like, here, can you take the broken puppy and fix her and make her all better? And I was like,
I will definitely try.
I don't know what it is, but okay. So I took her to the vet. I looked in her mouth and I didn't see a cleft, but sometimes they're pretty far back. But I took her in, and sure enough, it's mega esophagus, which is not good. Not good. So we'll see. We'll try. We have an appointment in Pasadena on Tuesday.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So there we go.
We'll see. We'll see if we can get that worked out. All right, ladies. Let's get this started. You guys can get your grub on. Okay. So what kind of food were you guys talking about that you were craving for lunch?
We were talking about just like burgers and cheese, just pretty much all foods under the deck.
Yeah, at this point, I'll take anything. It's like you just think about everything you can't have, and you're like, remember when we could just go out and just get whatever you wanted?
I know.
It's like a delicacy.
I know. I think I miss two things. I miss about like pre-COVID, right? I miss al fresco dining because I used to go out with my dogs all the time. So I loved going out and just, because I'm, again, like it's just me. So it's just me and the dogs usually. So I'll take one or two of the dogs and stick them in the car, and we'll go and or we try to support a couple of establishments and then grab a sandwich at one and then dessert at another, and then go to a winery and enjoy it at the winery.
Wow, that sounds lovely.
It is.
Wait,
it is.
So where are you located?
I'm in Tehachapi. Now I'm in Tehachapi. Before I was in Cambria.
Oh, okay.
Are there lots of wineries in Tehachapi?
No.
Okay.
No, you got to find them.
There were a lot of wineries out in Cambria, but not a ton in Tehachapi. But Tehachapi has a couple. And they're not, by any means, Paso Robles, Central California, type. But I feel like this little town is growing and flourishing and, kind of slowly making its,
It's way back.
Its way on the map. So
I know at this rate, I mean, between you and Zach from Marley's Mutts, I feel like you're going to just make it like the animal rescue.
I know, right there.
Like, going to be like, oh, you're going to Tehachapi? Are you going to pick up a dog? Like,
right?
You could probably totally put it on one of like the, those little guide pamphlets, like the attractions that they have in like, the Motel 6s, right? Like, here's Marley's Mutts. And then here's this
no.
Here's this little place where the girl's psycho and she has weeds and a pond that doesn't work, but you can go to all the Danes, No, it's really cute. I like it. But it, and there is, 1, 2, 3, maybe 3 wineries. And they're more tasting rooms than they are wineries. One of them actually does have vines, but But yeah, I mean, it's a cute little town. You guys have to come up for sure. For sure. I'm hoping this summer. So this summer we turn 2.
Oh,
How exciting. Oh my gosh.
I know. Is our second birthday.
Man, you've
So
grown so much in 2 years.
Wow.
hoping to have like a big old like Dane extravaganza and have people over
Aw.
and invite you guys, of course, and
Your
all of our
second
sponsors.
Dane-iversary.
I know. I'm so excited. For the first one, I was in the middle of a move, so I couldn't. I was in the
You
middle of
couldn't
moving.
celebrate it, yeah.
No. So I'm excited. Yeah.
Oh, that is exciting.
Well then,
Yeah.
so on that note,
Yeah.
then, because I'm sneaky, so I'm already recording. But
Go
on
right
that note, I mean, Erika, so how did you get started then? 2
Okay.
years ago, we're traveling. I guess it could be even before 2 years ago, because I mean, I feel like with Great Danes too, you've really, like, that's not something you're just like,
You just pick out of
I
the blue.
just saw this cute Great Dane and I just said, you're coming home with me. It's like, there has to be a great story there.
Well, there is, and then I mean, for some it might be a little lackluster, but yeah, it's a story. So I was going. There may be some tears here because I'm not as good as Zach at like keeping him back. So I may start crying a little bit, but so 10 years ago, I was in a rough place, really rough place. Just I don't know, life events, you not being where you thought you'd be, family expectations, all sorts of things. It just led to, basically like the culmination of these like feelings of, I don't know, inadequacy. And there was some pretty bad depression involved there. And I was in a bad place, really bad place. And I had lost my German Shepherd that I had pulled. One of the first things I did after I turned 18, because my parents never let me have a dog when I was a kid. Every single birthday, every single Santa's list, all I ever wanted was a dog. Never got one. So I turned 18. See, that was quick.
It's okay.
Turned 18 and went to so I started attending classes at Cal State Northridge, and one day one of our classes got canceled and I don't remember why, and I was like, there's a shelter really close to here, I'm gonna check it out. So I did, and there was this 6-month-old German Shepherd, and it was like her last day. And I was like, oh my God, this poor dog. She's only 6 months old. She's beautiful. And so I was like, I'm adopting her. So I said, okay, well, this is your fee and you can pick her up next Wednesday because we have to take her to get spayed. I was like, okay, perfect. Of course I was disappointed because I couldn't take her home that day. So, but at the same time, it gave me like 5 days to go tell my mom that I had just done this because she was going to kill me, right? I was like, yeah, so I was never allowed to have a dog, but by the way, I just adopted a German Shepherd, right? So anyway, fast forward to 17 years later when she died. And,
that's a long life.
Yeah, she lived a really
Yeah.
long life. And she lived a great life. She went with me to Pennsylvania because I went to nursing school in Philadelphia. So she went with me there, and we had, many, many, many adventures together. And she always had to be an only dog, though, because she had really bad dog reactivity. And I mean, I tried many times, and it just never ever worked. So she was always an only dog, and then. So she died, and of course I was not, maybe 9 months later I was on the hunt for another Shepherd, and I was like, I gotta get another dog, like I just have to. And I started applying a lot of the German Shepherd rescues, and like many of my applicants, I'm sure, getting frustrated and not hearing back and or getting denied. And at the time I was living in a really cute little like cottagey type back house in Burbank. And it was, it wasn't huge. It had a nice sized yard though. And I was pretty active with hikes and, going out and going to the beach, but they just wouldn't. I think that once they looked at my address and saw where I lived, I just think that that was kind of the draw, like the, kind of the deal breaker.
Mm-hmm.
They wouldn't adopt a German Shepherd to me. So my godfather, who's a Catholic priest, who I met when I was like 5, and he's a Catholic priest in Santa Barbara, had this Great Dane that he had sort of taken in as a foster. He had no intentions of keeping him, from a parishioner that had brought him from Mexico. And this dog was in horrific conditions in the backyard. He was tethered to a tree with no like access to anything really. And he got fed whenever they remembered he was there. And the only water he had was like a, kind of like an old painter's bucket full of green water. Like he was just in bad shape. And so he said to the parishioner, he's like, because the parishioner had invited him over for a barbecue and he saw the conditions of this dog, and he's always been a big dog lover. He's like, look, you have 2 options. You give this dog to me, surrender this dog to me, or I call animal control on you. And so he quickly surrendered the dog.
Mm-hmm.
And, he took him to the vet, nursed him back to health and all that. And then he and I are really close. And so he knew of my frustration and of me wanting to get a dog again. And he's like, well, I know he's not a German Shepherd, but why don't you just come like meet him and spend some time with him?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I did. And the rest is history.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah. So like April 27th of, let me think, we're in 2020.
Mm-hmm.
So holy cow, like my math is really bad right now. Yeah. 2010.
Wow.
So yeah, April 27th of 2010, I went out and I met Twiga, and he was Velcro right from the start. Mm-hmm. So we were joined at the hip right from the beginning, and, brought him home. And, for a few weeks there, my life got a little bit worse before it got better, but he was there. And so he helped me through it, and then I don't know, he was like my ride or die. Like he just became my buddy, and he went everywhere with me, like everywhere. There wasn't anywhere in Burbank that like knew me that didn't know. Like we would go into my credit union with him. They took the first time that I walked in there, they took a Polaroid of him and they put him on this. Actually, he's one of the first dogs that was on this cork board that they have. That's like a cork board for the dogs of the credit union.
Mm-hmm.
And, he's been on every single Christmas card since then. And yeah, he was just my baby. And, lost him in January. But that he's the one on the logo to the rescue.
The logo.
And that's been the inspiration for the rescue. And then what really kind of like catapulted me into finally starting it, because of course I had always thought of it, but what finally just kind of was, what really drove me to start the rescue was fostering Steve. I was fostering Steve for another organization, and I had fostered a couple of other dogs before Steve, but then Steve had been taken in from like a really bad backyard breeder / hoarding situation, a small hoarder, not terrible, but just stains. And he had died, and the dogs were left to his girlfriend, and the girlfriend wanted nothing to do with them. But they, like, I don't know, there was all this like legal stuff that took place before the dogs could actually be released. And they were finally released, and it was Steve and then a female that had just had a litter of puppies. And they were Steve's puppies, but that also happened to be his sister.
Oh, wow.
We came to find out. Yeah. And so I was supposed to foster the mom and all the puppies, and then another rescue in Kern County, kind of stepped up and took them. And so then I was like, oh, bummer, I'm not going to get to foster. And then they called me later and said, hey, will you foster the dad? I was like, yeah, I just want to foster. I just want to help. So I meet him, and he's like a disaster.
He was a Great Dane too, right?
Yes, he was a Great Dane. And he's actually laying right next to me right now because he's a big old mama's boy. He's like, I've got to be touching you at all times. So
foster failure.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
I can see that happening.
So they're the best. Foster fails are the best. So then I picked him up from the rescue, and they said, he's got kennel cough, here's his meds, and blah, blah, blah. Long story short, it wasn't kennel cough. He is 3.5 years old, but he had never had a vaccine in his life. He had active distemper, and it was bad.
Poor thing.
And by the time they caught it, after 5 days in the ICU, the vet's like, this dog needs to be euthanized. He's got a 5% chance of life. I've seen this, in Israel where I'm from, and we just put them down. They have no chance of survival. Mm-hmm. And if they do, it's not much of a life, and yada, yada, yada. Well, we're kind of stubborn. So I was like, well, can I please just take him home and just try? I just want to try. I'm obviously not going to do anything to cause a dog harm, but you guys haven't done much good in the 5 days that you guys have had him anyway. Mm-hmm. So I don't see how asking for 24 hours is much different. In 72 hours, he was jumping around and bouncing around and playing with toys. Yep.
Oh
yep. So that was March of 2018, and 4 months later, ODA existed. 5 months later, ODA existed. Yep. So, yeah, because I had always wanted to with Twiga, but then I got Steve and realized how much these rescue dogs really need a voice. And I thought, and the thing is that in addition to the fact that I saw so many Great Danes in shelters, and even being surrendered as owner surrenders, and nobody to take them, like nobody.
Why do you think that was?
Yeah, exactly. That's because so anything over 100 pounds at the vet costs more money. Anything, right?
Yep.
So any anesthesia, any medication, even a vet visit, anything. And you'll see it right on the invoice, over 91 pounds.
Well, I'm sure people get intimidated too from the size.
Yeah.
Or the appearance, even though they're the gentlest, most silly dogs there could possibly be.
Yeah, they do. Well, because when they jump on you and they're taller than you, then that's, of course, you can't help but be intimidated. So, the cost of vetting, a lot of it too is the cost of food. You're like, oh my gosh, we go through this much food every week or every 2 weeks. And, the size, I live in an apartment. It's not fair to them. I don't get them out as much as I should and all that. And they don't need a ton of exercise. They just need the right kind of stimulation, and if they don't, the bigger the dog, the bigger the damage. Mm-hmm. So I just saw all these Danes kind of coming up really truly needing rescue. And, most of them would have to go to out-of-state rescues. A lot of them were going to Colorado. A lot of them were headed to, Texas or, Arizona or other.
Nothing local where they could go.
Nothing really here. So I saw the need, and I was like, I'm just going to try. Like, there's no harm in trying. Mm-hmm. And then once I got that letter in the mail that, that we had been approved as an entity, I was like, oh, okay, we're doing this. Like,
we're doing it.
So that's kind of how we came about. And, and it's been crazy. It's been a whirlwind. It's been busy. Even though I wish it wasn't. You know, and we've been able to help a lot of dogs. I mean, we've been able to help a lot of seniors that otherwise wouldn't have had a chance. We've been able to help a lot of medical dogs that otherwise wouldn't have had a chance. You know, I'm not, by trade, I'm a nurse. I've been a nurse for almost 20 years. And so, you know, helping sort of the helpless and, you know, being an advocate is my thing, for people and dogs. And so, so the medical dogs are definitely something that kind of is a nice way. Steve, come here. Is a nice way. There he goes. See, you always hear me calling. Oh, Steve, come here. It's FedEx. You gotta love FedEx. Come here. Come here, Steve. Come here. Come here. Go. So, you know, being a nurse and being a rescue, being able to help all these medical dogs is sort of a nice way to, you know, kind of like mesh these two passions of mine, you know, nursing and dog rescue. So it's, you know, it's really been great. It's really been awesome to help so many dogs.
That's what you were made for.
Yeah. Yeah, that there's been a need for it because, you know, and you guys, Cuddly, as I sit here and look at like 9 boxes from you guys, has been, you know, has really been instrumental in that. Because you guys provide us with so many of the things that we need for some of these really, you know, the kind of the worst cases. So, yeah, so it's been great. It's been fun. I mean, I wouldn't change a thing, you know. It kind of does make you realize who your real friends are and who's going to really be there for you, because so many people don't understand it, you know. Family, friends that knew you before and lived a life with you before, and all of a sudden this becomes, I mean, literally consumes you, and they don't get it.
Yeah, I think that's what we've heard before too, is like once you get into this, and this is, I mean, I'm not sure if this is true for you, but let me know. But I feel like all these rescuers we've talked to, they'll say, you know, I could go to Starbucks and I could get a cup of coffee, or I could save that money and I could like vaccinate this many dogs and I can do this many things. And so it's like, it becomes so integrated in your life that you're just like, every choice you make, you're like, I could get this, or I could pull this many dogs. And so it makes you feel like the gravity of every like decision a little bit more. Yeah.
No, and you know what's really true about that? I have a funny story about that, actually. Something similar to that is that so I live in maybe 2 or 3 different types of shoes, right? Like as a nurse, I always lived in clogs. Clogs is all I ever wore. In the winters, especially here in the snow, it's like Uggs or some sort of boot, right? So boots. Or flip-flops. I love flip-flops. Like I live in flip-flops all the time, right? Well, then I started to rescue and I started bringing in all kinds of dogs, and man, the first thing to go is your shoes. And it's you think you're going to hide them, where you're going to put them. They can be right under your nose, and your shoes are gone. Like slippers gone in 2 seconds, flip-flops gone. And so this is really kind of sad to admit, but so I had all these Havaianas, and they were like my favorite because they're cushiony enough, and you know, the Old Navy ones are great for, you know, just random stuff if you've got to get them wet, but the Havaianas are great. But they were all gone. So I had gifted my grandma, my poor 85-year-old grandma, with some Havaianas a few years back. Well, she's staying with me now because of COVID. So she's been with me for about 6 weeks. No, probably longer now. Probably close to 2 months. And she saw that like I was either in slippers outside even, or like boots, and it was warm. And so she's like, well, do you want these? And I was like, didn't I give you those? She goes, yeah, but you use them a lot more than I do. So she gives me these Havaianas, and it didn't take me long to realize that they're like broken, right? They're the little middle part where your toe goes has poked through that hole so many times that when you take a step, it just comes off. Like it just pulls out, right? And so, but it doesn't matter. What I do is I just drag my feet because I'm like, I'm not going to buy, right? I'm not going to buy new shoes when it means vaccines and this and that, whatever. I'm just going to deal with these shoes and be embarrassed if I go in public. And well, sure enough, one of these days I was out at Home Depot with one of the dogs that I needed to help get socialized a little bit. And I'm out there, and sure enough, in one of the aisles, the freaking Havaiana comes off. So I'm walking, and I got no shoe on. I was like, well, that's embarrassing. It's like 10 feet behind me. So then I put it back on, take a few steps, and it comes right back off. And that has been my Havaiana story because I'm still living that reality right now because they're the only.
Because you're like, I can get new shoes or I can treat this dog. I do have a question though, because I do see people do that on social media a lot. I see them taking their dogs to Home Depot specifically, not Lowe's, not anywhere else. They take them to Home Depot and they do a lot of socialization training there. Is that like a is a hidden technique that you like? Because I feel like I see it so much. It's like it's got to be a thing, right?
Well, I think it's one of the few places because it's really kind of like a home improvement, very outdoorsy. Like, there aren't too many places where you're going to go where there's going to be a bunch of birds flying around on the inside of the warehouse, right?
Yeah.
So, I have seen some people take their dogs into Ross or Marshalls. Like, I wouldn't do that. I just feel like I do feel like
closed too there.
Yeah, exactly. Like the lighting, the ceilings, they just feel more encroached on. And with like a fearful dog, the aisles are so big. It almost seems like an extension of the outdoors, It's just very open. And they just have such a great pet-friendly policy, most of them. I know that some of my friends like on the East Coast are like, oh, I wish my Home Depot allowed dogs and whatnot. And, but everyone I've been to here has always been super, super friendly. A lot of them have treats. I remember doing a little mini photo sesh with one, and like they had this decked out tough shed with like a chandelier and a really pretty rug and a couch. And I had one of my dogs with me, and she just went right in there thinking, hey, cool. This is a really nice living room. Like, I think I'll stay here. You can leave now, So, so I think it's great, and you get to, they have the garden area, so that's outdoors, and it's a little bit less maybe threatening and intimidating to a fearful dog. And then, I've just always had really good luck with, communicating with people. They're like, please, approach slowly, or, don't pet, let them come to you, or, would you mind just standing there and seeing how she reacts to you? I mean, some people aren't keen on it anywhere, no matter where you're at, but I've just had really good luck there. It's just I don't know, it's a really dog friendly place.
I always wondered that.
Yeah.
I feel like I just saw it so much. I was like, that must be just the place to go.
Yeah. I like it. And honestly, I don't know that Lowe's has a policy. Like, I've never taken one to a Lowe's. They're also, I don't know, there are fewer Lowe's and Home Depots maybe, so maybe that's another reason why. But yeah, there's always a Home Depot, and I've never had an issue, and it's always been great. And I feel like so many of these contractors also, they deal with a lot of dogs, right, doing the work that they do. So they're comfortable enough. Their energy is a good energy, right? And that's kind of what you want, is you don't want to take the dogs into a place where it's like a boutique where somebody's shopping for a dress and they're going to be super standoffish and all that, because that's not the kind of energy you want the dog to receive.
Yeah.
Right. You want, the idea is to like rehabilitate this dog and get the dog better and used to people, and not kind of, put it in a situation where you're going to surround it with people that aren't super welcoming. And it's always been super positive and great at Home Depot. So, yeah.
Well, so do you typically pull all your dogs from shelters? It's kind of bizarre for me to think that like something so breed specific would be so populous in shelters, which I guess is like silly of me to think. But I mean, I feel like every time I walk into a shelter, like if I saw a Great Dane, I guess I would be a little bit shocked, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Good question. I mean, I think that used to be the case. And I would love for that to someday be the case again. But I think that we have so many irresponsible breeders. Here's my theory. My theory is we have so many bad irresponsible breeding going on, right? And these dogs are getting brought over from other states and, maybe even other countries. In Mexico, there aren't the same, responsible breeders, show breeders, responsible breeders, they have contracts. They keep track of their dogs. They know where their dogs are. They know who their dogs are being bred to. So these dogs that we see in shelters are not being responsibly bred, right? They're not dogs that you're going to be able to trace back to like a Westminster dog, right? For instance. So just like an Irish setter or, any other Westminster responsibly bred dog, you're not going to find one of them in a shelter either. But Great Danes have big litters, right? Because of them being such a, I don't know, I'm going to use the word novelty here, just for lack of another term, but because of them being such a, like cool breed, and they're, sort of boutique-y and whatever, they have big litters. So 14 Danes, let's just say 14, 10 to 14 Danes per litter, right? So let's say you have 10 Danes even per litter for somebody that wants to sort of make a living off of that. So you have 2 pregnant females at any given time every 3 or 4 months, and you're making 10 to 14 grand minimum off of each of her litters. Because even, a lot of the Danes that I've seen even on Craigslist are $1,500-$1,800, and you get them with no health certificates. You get them with no papers. There's nothing to tell you anything about these dogs. And the only reason that, I could be extra passionate about it because it's the breed that my rescue is about. But I don't feel like a Yorkie, right, that you breed irresponsibly would be as much of a liability if their temperament doesn't turn out right. Right?
So, yeah.
Exactly. Also,
the bigger the dog, the bigger the risk.
Exactly. So now, you have all these irresponsible people breeding dogs irresponsibly. And that doesn't only affect their health in terms of blindness, deafness, mega esophagus like this baby, Wobbler's disease, dilated cardiomyopathy. I could go on and on and on about all the ailments that Danes come with. It doesn't only affect them health-wise, of course it affects them temperament-wise as well, So now you have, a young family with 3 kids that thinks that, buying a puppy off Craigslist because they want a puppy, because they want it to grow up with their kids, and they think they're doing the right thing. So they get this puppy because they think that if they have it from puppyhood, they're going to be able to mold it into whatever they want, right? And they treat it like a puppy. Well, Dane puppies grow fast. They do. And by the time they're 7 months old, they're knocking kids over, and if they're not trained and all that, and even the ones that are, sometimes people do everything right. They do everything right, or they think they do everything right, and then they don't socialize the dog. And then they start having company over, and the dog goes, crazy.
Into defense mode.
Yeah.
So when I imagine like these like backyard breeders too, are those people who are irresponsibly breeding, I'm assuming that they're typically going to be selling to perhaps people that
anybody
don't necessarily know what they're getting into, or perhaps they're not going into it with the education that a responsible breeder would provide them with.
They don't care. They do not care. These people just care about money in hand. That is all they care about. They don't want to know what your house looks like. They don't want to know if your fence is tall enough. They don't want to know what your neighbors are like. They don't want to know, it can maybe sound a little bit judgmental, but profession and annual income and things like that, those things are important, right? Because you want to know that if as a 10-month-old puppy, this total dodo doesn't swallow a toy, because they do it all the time, and then it's going to cost you $7,000. So many Danes are surrendered because of obstructions, or medical reasons,
because they're so large. So like the typical toy that I would give my pointer,
right.
I mean, I imagine they could just swallow. I didn't even think about that. They could just swallow it.
Exactly. I mean, there have been several Danes that we've taken in that have been calls from vets saying, you really don't want to put down this 1-year-old Dane. It's a beautiful dog and he's really sweet, but the owners want to put him down because they can't afford his care. They can't afford his surgery, because he swallowed something and we did x-rays and there's an obstruction there.
Mm-hmm.
And and you have to, situations like those are my cuddly situations, right? Like those are the situations where I'm like, oh my gosh, where am I going to come up with $5,000? Like, oh my gosh, I got to reach out to my girl Sam, because those are the situations that you have to act on immediately and just be impulsive about, because intestines die quickly. Like, if that totally, if that, you don't know how long that's been there, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not going to be the one to take a gamble and make an assumption and be like, oh well, maybe that's the toy he swallowed yesterday and not the toy that the owners didn't realize he swallowed 3 months ago, right? Once that tissue is necrotic, you can't get it back. And there's a lot of things that can be replaced and we can live without, but intestines aren't one of them. And so, there's a lot of dogs like that, a lot of dogs that we get called from vets and a lot of times too, with the vets, it's the behavioral ones too.
Mm-hmm.
And the behavioral dogs are a lot harder to raise funds for than the medical dogs, because they quote unquote look normal, like they don't look, they don't tug at heartstrings as bad. But the way I see it, death is death. And if they're going to lose their life over their behavior versus losing their life over an intestinal obstruction, like what makes one life more valuable than the other? It doesn't, right? So we still need to save that life. And a lot of times, I will say this, not only is it harder to raise funds for the medical, but a lot of times the behavioral costs so much more and you can't raise any funds for it.
Well, and I'm sure that the behavioral takes a lot longer too than a surgery or a recovery of a surgery.
Yep. It's a complete, psychological, shift and rehabilitation. And it's not easy. And it does take time. I mean, we've had some very successful behavioral cases. One of them was with me. I took him in. He was one of my very first intakes. Vinny. He came from one of the shelters in San Bernardino. Yes, he came from San Bernardino. And rescue only. He already had a couple bites on his record. And they demanded he be, in a hard-sided crate, for transport out of the shelter. And come here, guys. Come on. Steve, come on. And so we did all those things, got him into the rescue. I mean, they pulled him out. I have pictures of him on catch poles. Like he needed catch poles to be transported to the car. Yeah. Oh, and he's living his life with a one-eyed 9-pound Shih Tzu rescue in San Diego. And he is he's like the little neighborhood celebrity. Like he's just, but he was with me for 7 months, 7 months of trying to show him that, and a lot of times with these behavioral dogs, it's not so much about training them. It's just about giving them time, right? Giving them time to understand that people aren't all out to get them, that humans aren't all bad, that we're going to go ahead and give them whatever time they need to come around and realize that there's no ill intention there, ill will, that we're not going to hurt them. And that's all it took with Vinny. Yep.
Yeah, well, that's why I asked about the shelters, because I have heard, and I mean, I would assume it would be maybe a little bit more of an exaggerated case for Great Danes, but that larger dogs in shelters tend to experience like a very emotional response to just being in a shelter, that like a lot of them go through like really heavy depression, and whereas like a little dog maybe will bounce back a little bit more quickly when you take them out, they're like, okay, this is my new life, everything's gonna be okay. Maybe like I've heard that, like I know like labs and things like that, when you take them out, it maybe takes them a while to shake off like the blues a little bit,
decompress.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, the Danes are definitely sensitive. I will say that. And then secondly, if you let's take a kennel, for instance, just a standard kennel at a shelter.
Okay.
Well, you stick a Chihuahua and a Yorkie and an English Bulldog all in the same size and type of kennel that you stick a Dane in.
Say the smaller ones have
which
more
is
room.
why so many of them end up with happy tail. They just don't have room. And so they whack their tails, whether out of anxiety or, even joy when somebody comes to the kennel. They whack it, split it open. All of a sudden, now that creates not only a medical, but some sort of a psychological behavior as well, because now they start obsessing over their tail. Right? They're licking it. They're making it worse. I mean, or they have a paw injury from pawing at the kennel. So now they're licking at their, and our shelters do the best they can with the resources they have.
Right. Yeah.
Not, a kennel attendant, like not one person can be on every single, Steve, come here, Steve, on every one of these dogs. Steve, come here, buddy.
I love that his name is Steve. Like, I'm such a sucker for dogs with people names. Like,
like a Wilson or a Henry.
I know. Steve's a goofball. Steve's not one that came from the other rescue. He's a total goofball. But yeah, I mean, that's that's kind of the reasoning behind why some of the big dogs don't do as well, is because they simply just don't have the space,
Space
and it psychologically does affect them.
Totally.
More,
so even if like they're have all these like visible medical issues, I mean, alongside that, I'm sure you have to like deal with all these emotional components too. So it's like never just like, oh, fix that paw and everything will be fine. Yeah. It's like,
no,
they always need a little bit of extra love and care. And granted, like, I know when we would we hung out with you at OC Pet Expo, right?
Right.
Yep.
Yeah.
I know Sydney too would like she crawled up into the dog bed and was just like curled up in a Great Dane's arms. Like, they're like the sweetest. So granted, like, it's totally worth it. Like, these dogs are like, let me love you forever. Like,
a big weighted blanket. Oh, it's lovely.
Yes, I know. And they love their weighted blankets too. They're such babies.
Oh, really?
Like yeah. It's like the best way to get them calm is to slap a weighted blanket on them. They sleep all night.
I need to try that with my dogs. I never would have thought about that, because they say the weighted blanket helps even like humans with like anxiety or like insomnia. So that's interesting. That it's the same.
My guys love it.
It's like a thunder vest for the whole family. Like, everyone crawls under the blanket.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, totally. Yeah. No, my guys love it. I mean, it's very comforting. And they, I have definitely seen a very positive result from a weighted blanket on these dogs. So yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I guess, oh, sorry, Bridge.
No, yeah.
Just, I guess, for the sake of, those people that are listening right now that are potentially thinking about getting a Great Dane, or are thinking of getting no matter the age, a puppy, a 6-month-old, a senior, could you kind of maybe shed some light on, those recommendations that they perhaps may not get from the person they get that dog from, or even like recommendations of your own? That way, we can kind of help perhaps save a few animals from being surrendered
Right.
if they, if they know what they're getting into.
First of all, I think I would be irresponsible to not say spay and neuter, spay and neuter, spay and neuter, spay and neuter. Like, I know I'm not one of the all breed rescues that takes in a ton of dogs all the time. Kudos to them. Like, I don't even know what I would do. I say this all the time. I don't even know what I would do if I was an all breed rescue, because as it is, I can't say no to any Dane that that I get a request to take in. But on top of that, the burden placed on these all breed rescues, because they must get called about any dog from the size of like a 4-pound teacup Chihuahua to a 200-pound Mastiff.
It keeps you sane to focus on just one breed.
Yeah. Right. And so, but even with my one breed, spay and neuter, spay and neuter, spay and neuter, like it could just help so much with, anything from pet overpopulation to pyometra to, producing a bunch of really, messed up medical case dogs. So there's that. Secondly, I just feel like sometimes not placing, maybe an expectation on things, not being so rigid with what they're expecting from getting, a quote unquote gentle giant. I think that people need to treat them the same way that they would treat any dog they're bringing into their home, and still realize that even though that's what they're called, they still need training, right? They still need boundaries. They still need guidance. They still need structure. They still need if anything, they need more socialization than most dogs, because in public, if this is a dog you want to take in public, which a lot of our adopters are like, oh, I want a dog that I can, take everywhere. Then socialization is key. You have to do that. If you don't do that, first of all, even a socialized Dane that you take out in public is intimidating to most people, right?
Yep.
Also, most people are going to see a dog that big when you're out in public, even at Home Depot. They're going to be drawn to them. You're going to attract people. People are going to want to come up to you and all that. And you don't want your Dane biting their hand off, right? So, you have to, you have to be responsible about setting your dogs up for success, right? Set them up to where they don't fail. Because one failure, and that's enough. So many families will say, well, the dog did this, and so now I can't risk it around my kids, so we have to surrender it. Yeah. There's no effort put forth, for anything. Or they decide to send it away to training, right? Where they don't actually participate in anything that happens. They don't actually, they kind of just want a quick fix, and then they get the dogs back and it doesn't work.
Doesn't it revert usually if the
because they didn't follow through with anything that they were instructed to do. I'm going to go ahead and say that the majority of the issues with not just the Danes, but with any of these dogs is the people. Right? It's really us. It's us knowing what we should and shouldn't be doing. It's us knowing, what situations we can and can't place them in, and how to properly train and socialize these dogs. And I think that it is a huge responsibility, especially with the big guys, because, I would hate, I absolutely love the pitties, and my heart goes out to anybody that rescues these pitties, because now that is an endless, tireless, thankless, like never ending job because of how many there are out there. Right. But, rewind 60 years and they were the family dog.
Yep.
Try to convince somebody of that now, and they won't. They're not having it. So many people are still so biased, unfortunately. And hopefully that will change. I always say, in the 80s, I remember in the 80s, it was the Doberman. Oh my gosh, nobody wanted, like the Doberman was like the aggressive dog, and then like in the 90s, it was the Rottweilers. And then it seems like the pit bulls, unfortunately, have stuck around for a while, but I would hate to see that happen to Great Danes.
Yeah.
I'd hate to see that happen to any dog, but being that I'm a breed specific rescue and that these are my babies, like I just hate for that to happen to them, because they already have something not on their side, and that's their size, and the amount of damage they can, they can cause not only, not only on your drywall, but on a person. A Great Dane bite is not a Yorkie bite. It's not a Frenchie bite. And it seems to be more excusable in the smaller dogs and not at all tolerated. And the thing is here's the bottom line. It shouldn't be tolerated, accepted, or excusable in any size dog. Right? Because we're not talking about the size of the bite. We're talking about the behavior. And, all you got to do is talk to postmen and UPS guys and FedEx guys and ask them what dogs are the feistiest and the ones they're the most scared of. And they're almost all, every time, going to tell you, those Chihuahuas are really feisty. So, advice to training, socialization for sure. Secondly, thirdly, maybe fourthly at this point, get health insurance. Be prepared. Pet insurance is pretty common nowadays. It's a lot of employers offer it. And if you don't want to do pet insurance, totally fine. Get a good old fashioned piggy bank or a coffee jar or something and put $10-20 in there every month. Be prepared. Because it's not a matter of if it's going to happen. It's when. It will happen. Something unexpected will happen. We've gotten so much rain. There's foxtails everywhere. A foxtail in the eye that you don't catch, or it's something that goes up their nose or in their ears, and then guess what? Now it's in their bloodstream, and dogs have died due to a foxtail. Something as simple as that, I mean, when you think about it, can kill your dog, and the vet bills are high. And so just be prepared for that, and don't, as if it was your child. And the thing is, I guess, in summation to all that, if you're not prepared to do all those things, and if you're not prepared to put in the time and the effort and the money that it takes to, welcome one of these incredible beings into your family, then just wait. Yeah. Right?
Yep.
Don't be impulsive. Don't do it because somebody asked you for it on their, for their birthday or on their Christmas list. God knows my parents never did. Don't do it. Don't do it. Children are going to ask for something different every week. But wanting a Great Dane because your 4-year-old wants it is not a good enough reason.
Yep.
Yeah. So.
Oh, yeah. Thank you for that. That's
amazing really suggestions. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, so how is your adoption process then? I mean, given your background too, where people maybe were prejudiced against you getting a dog because your home was, in their eyes, not big enough and things and granted, not big enough for a German Shepherd, you'd think is very different than not big enough for a Great Dane.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, what do you look for when you're adopting out, and how does, I guess your personal experience inform that?
Yeah. So, good question too there. I see a lot of angry posts, right, on social media. And I get some emails that go along the lines of this. I submitted an application 37 seconds ago. That's an exaggeration, but you get what I'm saying. Right?
Yes.
I just submitted an application and I'd like to adopt this dog and this dog and this dog. And if that doesn't work, well, then we'll just get a puppy, but look forward to hearing from you. We'll just buy a puppy. Look forward to hearing from you. Well, so many things wrong with that, right? So many things wrong with that. That tells me that's, an impulsive decision. They want what they want because they saw someone walking down the street. They saw someone in public. They saw a movie where there was a Great Dane. All of a sudden they want a Great Dane. They're not going to stop. They went to my website. They saw some pretty dogs. They didn't read their bios at all. And they applied for those dogs, right? And if I don't reply to their application, and if I don't let them have those dogs, then they're going to go on Craigslist and just buy a puppy and support and perpetuate what as rescues we're cleaning up daily, right? So that is a troublesome type of, interaction right there, just from the get-go. That email's just got red flags all over it. Do I not adopt people because they're in a small space or an apartment? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. About a month ago, I called someone who lives in a very small space, in like the Hollywood Hills. He does have some square footage on the property, but like what's actually his living space is small. But great app. Called him. He didn't get back to me. Turned out he had already scheduled something that weekend, and he had adopted a dog, not a Dane, but a dog, and emailed me back saying that and this dog was really easygoing and whatnot, and that he appreciated my reply and that he probably wanted to still move forward with adopting a Dane because he wanted to have two. Great. So in communication with that guy and, kind of just waiting for the right dog to come along for him. And that is what I think that probably 99% of the people don't understand of our applicants. And I'm sure other rescues encounter the same problems. I'm sure they do 100% of the time, is that it's not about you filled out an application, here's a dog. It's not a lotto ticket. It's not like you give $5 and then you get a $5. It's not how it works. I spend so much time vetting every app, right? Looking at their home, checking out their fencing, doing the home check, checking their vet references, their personal references, what pets have they have in the past. If they've never had a Dane, why a Dane now?
Mm-hmm.
All of those things. How long have you been looking? Why have you been looking? Why is it a Dane that's, why is it that this is what you want? If they rent, if they rent, I need to know from your landlord that bringing a giant dog in like this is okay. There are so many things. And so a lot of people don't understand that it's very much about making a match. And it's not just about, next. No, I would be no better than the backyard breeders if everybody that came at me with an adoption application and adoption fee, got a dog.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yep.
So yeah, unfortunately, a lot of the really pretty dogs are the ones that get the applications. And unfortunately, a lot of the pretty dogs are the ones that have the worst behavioral issues, because a lot of these really bad breeders breed for looks and they don't care about temperament, and it really should be the other way around,
Mm-hmm.
So any spotted dog that I get, right, anything that's spotted or brindle or pretty or different looking gets a million apps. The black dogs just sit there,
Mm-hmm.
even though they have amazing temperaments, and could be a perfect fit for that family. They just sit there. Another thing people don't realize is, being in an apartment or a condo or a townhome does not rule you out absolutely from a Dane, but it may rule you out from the 10-year-old senior that you want.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to do that to a senior, make him go up and down those stairs.
I see all the stairs.
Yep, the stairs. Same thing maybe with, there are a lot actually right now. Ever since the shelter in place and COVID, we've been bombarded, like so many rescues, we've been bombarded with foster and adoption applications, and so many of them don't have dogs at all. Well, some of these Danes, separation anxiety and anxiety is kind of one of the things that plagues this breed. And a lot of these people don't have another dog. So when everything goes back to normal right? Quote unquote, whatever the new normal is going to be. And they don't have another dog to keep that dog company. Are they going to call me like that day and say, so he went through my window, this dog has to go? Like he jumped over my fence, or he ate this and he ate my entire couch. And, so some of the dogs, ODAT's fosters are amazing. They're really good at being communicative and keeping me in the loop about what the dogs are like and what homes would be best suited for them. And right now we just happen to have a lot of dogs that would need a buddy. They're just in homes with other dogs and they need buddies. Now it just so happens that the ones that would prefer to be only dogs, nobody wants them, right? Because they need to be only dogs for a reason, right? And it's typically something behavioral. So if that's the case, then it's not their perfect dog and they don't want that dog. But that dog is probably way better suited for their home than the super socialized, bubbly, energetic 16-month-old puppy. But
yeah, that's so interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, even like going back to your adopter, like in my head too, I'm like, okay, small space. So if they already adopted a dog and they're like, well, I'm still interested in a Great Dane, I'm like, well, now there's even less space because there's a dog there. But you're like, yes, absolutely. Let's throw a very social dogs into the mix. And in the end, like that's more important than necessarily like square footage.
Right. Yeah. Because it's very much of a match making type of thing, and it's not, I wouldn't put a dog in there that is super energetic and active. I wouldn't put, I would put maybe a middle-aged dog that we know does well with children because he has, a 7-year-old and he has a small dog now. So I would put a dog in that home that fits that home, not necessarily maybe what he saw on my website that he thought looked visually appealing to him, because we're such a superficial society. People are going to, and that's why I tell my, right, we are, I mean, like, yeah, 41 and single, trust me, I'm telling you this from experience, not just dog experience, but like I tell people all the time, and I tell my fosters this all the time. I'm like, look, guys, pictures are so important. So that's why I'm hoping to, like, at some point soon get a photographer that can maybe photograph each and every one of our intakes, and kind of really get their personalities to, show and kind of come across in a photo. Because a lot of times some of the pictures I get from my fosters, and, they're not photographers. I shouldn't expect them to take, amazing pictures of these dogs, but they're not the kinds of photos that when people are, scrolling through, Pet Finder or Rescue Me or our website or anywhere, they're going to be like, that's the dog. Their eyes speak to me, and it is more difficult for, some of the older dogs or the darker dogs or whatever. So, but it doesn't make them any less adoptable, and it doesn't make them any less worthy of an amazing home, So, yeah.
Maybe we can find you a photographer through this then. I
yes,
mean,
let's find
heck,
a
girl.
Do you want a honey-do list? Because I have one.
No, I mean, I feel like there are so many photographers too that are looking to like give back a little bit. And heck, like if you're gonna have to deal with like a temperamental personality, it may as well be a little pup. Since I mean, not a little pup, but
right, yeah,
instead of an Insta girl or something.
Yep, exactly. So, yeah, I mean, it's a lot of education, even on the, on the adopter's end. I mean, it really has to be, I mean, really, truly, some adopters get really upset, and they think that it's really just I don't know, like a first come, first serve type of thing, oh, I have my application in already, so that's the dog for me. Oh, I have, which I'm not going to lie, from a rescue standpoint, it sometimes makes me hesitant to even post the dogs we have available, because we have some amazing applications on file. Amazing. And I'm still waiting for a dog to come in that's going to be perfect for that home. Right. Now, what happens a lot of times, again, because people want what they want and they're not always patient, is that by the time that perfect dog comes in, I call those people and, oh, I got a dog already, right? So, it doesn't always work out, but I'm not going to change the way that I do things because it works. And our return rate of dogs has been extremely low, like really. And for being so big, that's huge. For being such big dogs, that's a huge thing that you don't get a lot of dogs back. And the reason we don't get a lot of dogs back is because I'm so stringent on, I'm very meticulous about where those dogs go. And if it takes a while, and I tell that to my fosters too, I'm like, because especially some of the new ones are like, so how long is this commitment? Like, how long can I extend? I'm like, can I tell you that if you're asking that question, maybe it's not going to work out because I don't know. Like, I don't know. I try to keep them in foster care for at least 30 days. I feel like that's enough. We're at about a 47% spay neuter rate. So that's pretty high. Oh, yeah. Most of the dogs we take in are not spayed and neutered. And so we're spaying and neutering a lot of dogs. So, by the time you take a dog in, you let them get a little bit acclimated enough to where they trust their fosters to take them to the vet, right? And they're not going to go crazy and bite people. And then you take them to the vet and you trust them enough, to pick them up and you have them in a weird situation. And, some of them, it's never just an easy spay neuter. It's always like, oh, we found this mass, or, we had to do this or we had to do that. And then they have like a 1 or 2 week recovery from that. So right there, you're already at 3 weeks, right? So
wow, 1 or 2 week recovery.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
They're
like 12 days.
Yeah. So, once you take all of that into consideration, it's about a month before a dog is even available. So I always tell them minimum a month, but probably longer because I'm really, really picky with my apps. Yeah. What I've started doing recently is, because the fosters know the dog's the best, is I'll look through the apps and pick like the top 3 and I'll shoot them over to them. And then I'll like, tell me what you think, because it really is. It's almost like this really involved mathematical, calculation of, how many people are in the home, what kind of people are in the home, how long are they going to be gone? What is the home like? How many other animals? I mean, like seriously, sometimes I get applications where they're like, we have 3 dogs and 4 parrots and 2 goats and 4 horses and a pig and 2 tortoises and where, and I look at it and it's like, oh my gosh, do I have a dog that's not going to kill all those animals? Like, do I have a dog for them? So, it really is kind of a matchmaking type of thing. I think that sometimes our adopters don't get it.
And it sounds like, you like with such large dogs that have such a tendency to have like medical issues, it sounds like you have to devote, a lot of medical care, a lot of time in general to getting them to a position where they are even adoptable. So it's like, I'm not just going to give it to anyone off the street. Yeah. It's like, I've dedicated a lot of time to this animal. Probably, I'd wager more than maybe like a typical dog that you just would pull. Like maybe that dog is actually okay and it just needs like spay and neuter and then it's ready to go. You know what I mean? Whereas Great Dane probably, like there are lots of, and maybe it even takes a second for you to find out what the issue is or what the issue could be. So you're like, adopter, like, please devote as much time to this as I have, because this is forever.
Yeah, exactly. It is a commitment. It's totally a commitment. And that's why even with my fosters, I choose to keep my circle small, because even fostering is a commitment. And so, I need them to understand that if I send home a letter with my adopters saying, it could take up to 3 months for this dog to sort of really be comfortable and kind of come out of its shell and come into its own and, be okay in your home, then honestly, the same expectations apply for you. Like, the dog doesn't know any different. The dog doesn't know that this one's a foster and that one's an adopter. right?
Mm-hmm.
So
right.
I expect the same for my fosters. I expect them to understand that these things take time. And they're really great at it. I mean, they're, most of them just want to help so badly that they just, they're all about it. And, I'm me and Lauren, who helps me a ton. And then we have, like most rescues probably do, we have a page that's just for the fosters. We offer a ton of support through all that, and let them know that, oh, okay, so they have, some diarrhea in the first few days. That's okay. That's to be expected. They're super sensitive and they're Danes, and different environment, different food, different everything. Oh, they're not eating. That's okay too. Just let it run its course, and don't push them too much and too soon, and all those things. So
yeah.
But also to touch upon that, and to go back to the thing that we were talking about with the shelters, is that where behavior and medical collide is probably the worst of all. And what I mean by that is, right now I think we have 4 Danes at the moment that all have what could only be described as like a lick granuloma on their paws, right? Yep. So a couple of them have them on their front. 2 of them have them on their front, and 2 of them have them on their back, actually. But it is an obsessive thing, right? Like, they know that is there, right? So medically, could you throw antibiotics at it and get it better with whatever? Sure you can. I did it with Otis. Otis is horrific. Otis is a dog you guys might be familiar with. He made it on the Pet Rescue Report and everything. He kind of went like semi-viral, that dog. His paws were super inflamed and everything. It turned out it was after several cultures, it turned out that they finally did a punch biopsy and stuff, and they were able to find out that it was a really awful type of mange infection that had gone untreated. But he also happened to be, and he had been on antibiotics for almost 2 months, and it wasn't really getting much better. And it turned out that he was like resistant to almost every single antibiotic out there. And so we had to get him on an antibiotic that was basically the equivalent of like vancomycin, which is, that's like the big gun. That's like the last resort, right? So, we got his paws better, and the top of his paw where he has a lick granuloma got better. And then one time, actually, I remember this vividly because he was with me. It was on our 1-year anniversary. I went down to the Kern County Animal Services to the Bakersfield shelter to pick up, to pull a senior, Logan, who's still with us, in rescue. And he was our 100th rescue. And I went down to pull him, and it's just down the hill. I wasn't going far. And I only had the one Velcro like cone, like Elizabethan collar. And I was washing it, and I was like, I'll just be right back, right back. Otis had been with me for months. He had messed with his paw. He was doing great. The paw looked fantastic. I come back. It's wide open and bleeding. Yep. And that's what, and Otis, Layla, Vaughn, and now our new girl, Molly, all of them. Same thing. They all have these weird obsessive lick granulomas. And are they great fits for someone? Absolutely. Every single one of these dogs is a good fit for a home of a current application. But in the spirit of 100% transparency, I have to disclose, I have to tell them, like, look, they have this. You're going to have to be very watchful and mindful of it. And then that turns people off, and they don't want it. Mm-hmm. It's like, a lot of people just don't want anything that requires any work. And even that in and of itself is sort of a red flag. You kind of, you can't help but think, well, if you're not willing to take on a dog that might be perfect for your home with this minor thing that's fully vetted and is spayed and neutered and microchipped and all these things are done already, then what's going to happen when the perfect dog that you get encounters a problem that you don't want to deal with, right? So, there's a lot of thought that goes into it, a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I can only imagine like investing not only like time and money, of course, but like your heart and soul a bit into each dog. You're
sure.
like, nope, I only for the best home.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, so you have Steve. Do you have another dog with you, or are you fostering?
I have a
or
bunch. No, so Steve, Leela, Simon, and Moxie, which you guys have met.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty much all of them, I think, except for maybe Steve, because he's such a spaz. but you guys have met Simon and Moxie. They're the Deffies. They're the white ones. Remember from the Pet Expo?
Yes, I remember Moxie.
Yeah, Moxie. And then you guys met Crone, who's no longer with us.
Mm-hmm.
And then I don't know if I took Benny to the booth or not, but Benny got adopted.
Yes, you did take Benny.
He was, right? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
He got adopted to an amazing home. Like, I'm kind of jealous, actually. But so Benny's in a really good home. And so my pack right now consists of Moxie and, Steve, Leela, Moxie, Simon, and Leon.
Are they
Leon,
all yours, or are any of them adoptable? No,
those guys are mine. And then adoptable, I have Sven, Rumi, Stella, and soon, hopefully, Aries. She's the little tiny puppy. I mean, she's not adoptable, but she's a foster. Mm-hmm. She's the little one with the mega esophagus.
Mm-hmm.
And Misty. I also have Misty, who's another medical foster. Who's another complete poster child for spay neuter. So Misty was brought to the rescue via another rescue, and that was like, hey, we're getting we have a request to take in a pregnant Great Dane. Can you take her? And I was like, sure. Like, I have no room, but I'll take her. Like, sure, fine, I'll take her. So we thought we were getting this pregnant Great Dane that was like ready to pop, and it turns out that her belly was just that big because it was that full of fluid. Yeah, so we've drained close to 6 liters of fluid in like the first couple of days of me having her, and then we're trying to do again echo and ultrasound and X-rays and all that stuff, and we did it. And after sending the fluid from like the essentially like the synthesis, sending the fluid, it turns out she has carcinoma. So the carcinoma is related to an 8-centimeter mass she has on her ovaries. So even though cancer in medical dogs are always frustrating, it's so much more compounded and so much more frustrating when it's something reproductive.
Yeah.
Because if
when it's preventable.
Totally. Exactly. So this could have been totally preventable in that dog. So I'm in the process of, I have a few emails with her, like all of her records and stuff out to a few vets to see if anybody, would be willing to take a chance on trying to essentially like spay this girl, basically, but at this point it's like, they call it a complex procedure. So it's like surgery. Spay her and remove this, the ovaries and this mass, and see if we can, buy her some time and give her a little bit more of the better life, because she's, even with just the fluid drained, this dog came to life. I mean, she just came to life. She's 180 degrees from what she was when I took her in.
She was probably so uncomfortable with all the weight and
totally. Yeah. I mean, it's hard for them to breathe when they have all that,
Mm-hmm.
So she, I mean, around, mealtime, she does bunny hops and she's very talkative and she's out there with the other, with the rest of the pack. And she's just really taking it all in and enjoying it. And, and here's a dog we knew nothing about. She was found on like the side of a freeway. And
wow,
she's totally housebroken, right? Sweet with all the dogs. She's probably like one of the best behaved dogs in my pack at the moment, and we knew nothing about her. So sometimes people just need to take a chance, and people always, a lot of times with the ones that come from shelters, even with the fosters, one of the main things is, are they potty trained? Are they housebroken? Are they this? Are they that? Are they good with dogs? Are they good with kids? Are they good with cats and chickens? And I'm like, I don't know anything about this dog. This dog is a dog in need, you know. A lot of the ones that we take, like all the ones that we take in and rescue, and it is a foster home. So it's kind of like, are you willing or not willing to try to make this work, you know? And I will say, even with Crone, I mean, Crone was found by a Fontana police officer lying on the side of the road because she thought she was picking up a dead dog. He was lifeless on the sidewalk.
Aww.
And Crone had every single, you know, marker, like he had all the evidence to support the fact that that dog had only ever lived outdoors. That dog never knew the indoors.
Yeah.
Yet he was perfection. Like he never had an accident. He never, you know, he never met a stranger. He was just the sweetest dog to people and dogs. And so,
he was.
I know. He really
I can just like still remember, like he just like, I remember he just like sat down in front of me when we were at the expo, and he just like let me hold him. Like if I do that with my dogs, like they squirm, they wiggle, they want up, they just like, they want so many things. He was just like so content with me holding him. And I was like, dear gosh, Erika, you're not taking this dog back. He's mine. I'm keeping him.
I think that Big Bear had other plans for you. No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, no, and he was like that. He was just a big ball of love, you know, and, you know, I miss him every day. I personally take on a lot of the medical, the senior, and a lot of the behavioral, not all, but a lot. And, you know, so with the medical and the senior, I've lost a lot in the last 9 months. I've experienced so much loss, and it's hard. It takes its toll, you know. I mean, I lost Crone.
Are their life expectancies a little bit shorter than the average dog?
Yeah, so a lot of people seem to think that, but my question to people is, well, what's the average dog, and what's your average life expectancy? Like, give me a number and then I'll answer that question better. But I think that people have this, you know, expectation that, like, is a Chihuahua going to live to 18 or 20? Yeah, maybe a Chihuahua. But then do people with Chihuahua, you know, that are interested in a Chihuahua or, you know, inquiring or whatever, say, well, are their life expectancies really long? You know, like, yeah. So the flip side to that coin is well, what is, you know, what are people's definitions and expectations of an average life expectancy? Because, you know, Twiga died when he was 12 and a half. Crone, I don't know how old he was, but Stella, who I have here, is 11 and a half. And that girl's spunky as heck. My Leela is going to be 10 in October. Steve is 5 and a half. And Logan is over 11, and that guy still has bunny hops and zoomies and stuff every now and then. So, you know, I think that Danes are, as much as the bad breeding is hurting the breed, both with temperament and with health, I think that they are also, fortunately for them, sort of coming into you know, like a time where, and a generation where people are taking better care of their pets, right? So, you know, people are getting help, you know, pet insurance. People are catching on to the lumps and bumps sooner. They're noticing, you know, changes in behavior, changes in eating patterns. They're doing dentals on their dogs. They're, you know, feeding them way better food than they used to feed them before. You know, all of these things I think are adding to life expectancies on dogs, including giant breeds like Great Danes. So, and like I tell every single adopter that I speak to on the phone that brings up that question, because that comes up quite a bit, almost as much as like in the public when you're walking them, how big are their poops, right? Like the how long do they live comes up almost as long as, you know, as often as that. And like I tell people, I say to most, because a lot of them use that as a reason for not wanting to take in a senior. And I say to everybody, look, all I can tell you is you have to make every day count.
Yeah.
Because nothing is a guarantee. You can adopt a puppy and there are no guarantees with that puppy. There are no guarantees that there's not going to be a catastrophic accident, that it's not going to run into the street, that it's not going to all of a sudden, have some sort of an internal injury or, whatever. You just don't know.
Mm-hmm.
So you can't live your life thinking how long, right? Yeah. Because then what do? Then we kind of wonder, like, well, what's going to, we live so that we can try to make that day count, but you got to make every day count. Right. So, yeah, I think that it's just important to keep that in mind and know that, regardless of the age of the dog, they're all deserving of love. They all need a good home. They all need love. They all just really want us to reciprocate their unconditional love. Mm-hmm. And we'll never come close ever. But that, that stands regardless of age. And so there just really are no guarantees. It's really sad because I see so many, I think just yesterday or the day before, I saw somebody lost their 7-month-old Dane just on a regular, normal stroll on their daily walk, just dropped dead from a heart attack.
About maybe 3 years ago when I was doing technical work at a veterinary hospital, it happened to a 1-year-old. They took it to the beach and got really excited. I mean, it was, of course, those things are not supposed to happen, and it was a freak accident, but it did, and it was really sad. Yeah,
it is. It's really sad. And then you have your older dogs that they'll live a long time. Mm-hmm. So here's the thing: is if you're going to get 5 years old out of a 6-year-old or 5 years old out of a puppy, it's still 5 years. Yeah. Right. The math doesn't change. It's still not that I think anybody should think like that. I think that you really should just adopt something that is a great match for you and love it. Love it while you can. Every single day. Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's so true. Yeah. Well, so as we wind down, my gosh, I'm going to have to change these questions because I feel like everyone has too many personal pets. I feel like we're going to ask some fun questions about your personal pets. So you're going to have to pick and choose who they apply to. Okay, and with that whole herd, I don't even know where you'd even start. Okay. Kind of to lighten the mood. So if your dog was president, what would be the first thing he did?
Lay on a couch.
Totally. Nice. That's for like all of them, or?
Yes. Lay on a couch, enjoy puppuccinos, and eat people food. Yes.
That's the life. That's what I strive to do.
Yeah, right?
Yeah, right? That's what I would do if I was president.
Okay, so what's one trick they've taught you?
To obey them. That when they're asking to get up at 2:00 in the morning, it means they need to go outside.
Yeah. Yes, that's so true.
So yes, that is a trick they've taught me. That when they wake me up in the middle of the night, it means business, and I better get up.
Business.
You will regret this if you don't.
Oh yes.
Okay, and then if you had to pick one life motto, what would it be?
Oh, wow.
I always love this one.
Oh my goodness. This is a toughie. One life motto. Oh gosh. I don't know. Just, I don't know if anybody, I'm sure if not everybody has said this, it's probably the corniest, lamest, most, played out motto there is, but live each day to the fullest. Really, truly, just live each day. Tomorrow is not a guarantee for anybody. And like I told you guys earlier, right? That's what I say to my adopters with the seniors. And, just love your dogs, pet them, Love on them. Don't get mad at them. You know, it's just, yeah, just live each day to the fullest, because especially with everything going on right now, you know, we just don't, shortly after the shelter in place and everything, I had said to my grandma, I'm like, oh my gosh, all we need now is like a huge earthquake and a bunch of locusts, right? And then, no joke, like 45 minutes later, there was an earthquake.
Is it really?
Yeah.
Oh, I heard. Yeah.
Recently?
Yeah, like a month ago.
Oh,
so it was like one.
And you've heard about the killer hornets or whatever, right?
Right, and the killer. Well, yeah, the killer hornets. And so,
the killer hornets.
Wow. And well, the crazy thing was there was an earthquake down. Like they were having them down by, like somewhere down by the Carrizo Plains is what I remember. Like somewhere down like San Diego or something. But then we must be along the same fault line, because like 45 minutes later is the earthquake we got up into Tehachapi. And my grandma and I were on the couch, and I had just said to her, yeah, all we need now is an earthquake. And her and I looked at each other, and there were like no words needed. She looked at me like I was possessed by some demon for just having the fact that I just said that, right? So yeah, I mean.
And then you're like, okay, so all we need is a winning lotto ticket.
Yeah, right?
Yeah, that one has never worked. That trick has never worked. But I wanted to someday. But yeah, I mean, you know, really, truly, there are no guarantees. We just don't know. And, you know, that, and just be kind to one another, you know, like there's so much. These days, it seems like politics are unnecessarily brought into every single conversation, whether it's what you know, believe or don't believe about COVID, whether it's what you eat, or, you know, how you wash your car, or how you live, or whether you compost or not. Like, it seems like politics are brought into everything, and it really has nothing to, you know, it shouldn't have anything to do with anything. You know, at the end of the day, you know, if you can lie in bed and know, and have a clear conscience and know, like, you're a good person, you did good today, you're going to strive to do better tomorrow, you didn't cause harm to anything, or, you know, any living being, you tried to make the world a better place. I mean, what else, right? Like,
yeah.
I love all the corny things you say, so I don't think they're corny.
I'm so corny.
They're corny because they're true.
Maybe too many Hallmark movies. I don't know, but I'm really corny.
No, every time you say something corny, I'm like, okay, get ready to have chills. Like, yes. Oh, no, I love that. That's so true. And I mean, not everyone says it. I think it's something that maybe we forget. Like, you get so caught up in the stressors of everyday life and things like that. But you're like, no, let's take a step back and say, like, hey, like, I'm doing the best I can.
Yeah. I know what I tell my fosters all the time, like every time I jump onto the foster page, I'm like, guys, I'm one person. Yeah. I'm sorry. I always start off with an apology. I'm like, I'm so sorry. I suck. I failed you guys all. I'm sorry. I'll get back to you guys, I promise. But, you know, because there's always like a dog you got to take in. You know, there's always a transport that needs to be done. There's always something that requires my attention. And I mean, you guys know from the first attempted, right? Our first attempted Zoom conversation that, like, things just don't go as planned. And so, you know, what do? You just roll with the punches and you improvise, you know. You just do. And you just hope that people are understanding, and that, you know, people aren't so jaded that they think that you're just making stuff up all the time, and that, you know, that you're just saying that you're busy, or you're saying that you have a lot on your plate, but in reality it's true, you know. So yeah, I mean, it's I mean, you know, One Dane at a Time came from a wooden sign that I had in my room that said one day at a time.
I totally forgot. Like, that totally correlates now. Just take one foot in front of the other. You're doing the best you can.
Totally.
Take it
so
one day
it's like every day at a time. And so, as corny as that motto is, I literally, like, live by it. Like, I started my rescue over it, you know? like that's all you can do is take things one day at a time. And just because on social media, a lot of the Dane pages always used Dane interchangeably with day. So we had like turning out choose Dane, right? And what knows when's Dane and senior Dane son Dane. And so everything was Dane instead of day. And I was like, oh my gosh, it's one Dane at a time. That's the name of the rescue. So but that's totally how I like to live my life, is just thinking of like tomorrow and the day after and the next week and what's going to happen in August and what's going to happen. Are we going to be able to, get together and have, Thanksgiving meals and, Christmas and like, that's all too overwhelming. Like, who wants to deal with all that? Right.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So the procrastinators of the world, like myself, love the one.
I love that motto.
Well, Erika, thanks so much for taking the time. I know that you've so much going on right now. I can only imagine with all the dogs around you, and I'm sure your page is blowing up right now. But we definitely love talking to you. I mean, we've been fans of yours. I feel like it must be for the whole 2 years.
Yeah, it feels like more than 2 years.
Yeah.
No, so we love talking to you, and I feel like I've learned so much about Great Danes now.
Oh yeah.
Aw, thanks. Well, good. I'm glad. I hope this was informative, and I hope that, I hope people aren't asleep by now, like listening to this. But yeah, thank you ladies so much. And, we love you and appreciate everything you've done for not only us, but for so many rescues. I don't know what the world would do without Cuddly. I really don't. You guys are just
stop it.
You guys are just the bestest. I love you all.
We love you too.
I love you all, and I can't wait until we can have some sort of a pet expo, and then we have to have booths together forever now.
Yes, right. They have to be right next to each other.
Right next to each other.
As long as we go.
Yeah, and Sydney can have another cuddle puddle.
Oh, I know. Yes.
Oh yeah.
Lay out all the beds. Give me about 3-4 Danes.
Yeah.
That's perfect.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks again.
All right, guys. Thank you. Thanks, Bridget.
We absolutely loved talking to Erika about the ins and outs of her organization, One Dane at a Time. It's so exciting that, this organization started just 2 years ago, and yet she's made such a difference on so many Great Danes out there. She educates her community, the pets that she takes in, she provides quality care for. She really just does so many amazing things, and we're just so happy to be able to stand behind her.
Absolutely. So don't forget to rate, like, and subscribe. You'll also be able to look into a little bit more information about One Dane at a Time on our blog posts. And if you're interested in learning a little bit more about Cuddly, you can find us on all social medias at We Love Cuddly. That's CUDDLY. Thanks, guys.